Nobody in that building knew his name. They saw him every morning. They passed him in the hallways. They watched him push that cart through the lobby without a single nod, without a single word. Juan Cotton was invisible. He wore the same gray uniform every day. He mopped the same floors. He emptied the same trash cans. And he smiled through all of it, even when nobody smiled back. He was a single father. He was exhausted, and he was doing everything right. But none of that mattered inside those walls. Then one Tuesday morning, something changed. A woman walked into that building. Her name was Delois Fuller. She was worth more money than most people in that office would see in 10 lifetimes. But she wasn't watching the executives. She wasn't studying the conference rooms or the framed awards along the walls. She was watching Juan. She stood still for nearly 45 minutes, just watching, silent. Nobody in that building knew what she saw. Nobody thought to ask. But whatever it was about to change everything. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Juan Cotton woke up every morning at 4:47 a.m. Not because an alarm went off, he didn't need one. His body had learned the rhythm. Wake up before the sun, move before the world noticed. He would sit on the edge of his bed for just a minute, one single quiet minute before the day started pulling at him. Then he'd get up. He'd check on Jared first, always Jared first. His son slept in the small room at the end of the hall, the room with the broken blinds and the Spider-Man poster taped above the bed. Jared was 8 years old, all energy and questions and big eyes that trusted his father completely. That trust kept Juan moving. He'd pull a thin blanket up over Jared's shoulder and stand there just a second or two longer than he needed to, just looking, just grateful, just reminding himself why. Then he'd head to the kitchen. Breakfast was simple, always simple. Oatmeal or eggs, depending on what was left in the refrigerator. A glass of juice for Jared. Coffee, black, for himself. He'd pack Jared's lunch while the coffee brewed. A sandwich, a small bag of chips, and a folded note tucked inside the bag. He wrote a different note every single day. Little things. You make this worth it. Keep your chin up, bud. You're the reason I try. Jared probably didn't understand all of them yet, but Juan kept writing them anyway. He had been a single father for 3 years. Jared's mother left when Jared was 5. She didn't offer much of an explanation. She stopped coming home one evening. By the weekend, her things were gone. Juan never talked about it, not to his coworkers, not to his neighbors, not even to his own mother, who called every Sunday and pretended not to notice the worn-down quality in his voice. He just kept going. He worked as a janitor at Callaway Group, a mid-sized consulting firm in the heart of downtown. 15 floors of glass and ambition. People in pressed suits walked those hallways with purpose. They talked fast. They moved fast. They had titles on their office doors and coffee orders that cost more than Juan's lunch. And Juan kept their spaces clean. He came in before most of the staff arrived. He stayed late after most of them left. He knew where everything was. He knew which hallway got muddy on rainy days. He knew which restroom always needed extra paper towels by noon. He knew the details that kept that building running without anyone realizing it needed to be run. But nobody knew him. Linda from accounting walked past him every single morning without looking up from her phone. Angelica at the front desk smiled wide at every visitor, but never once made eye contact with Juan. Henry and Munch from operations would talk loudly right beside him like he wasn't standing there, like he was part of the furniture, not a person. And his supervisor, Terry Follis, treated Juan like a function, not unkind exactly, just cold, efficient. She issued instructions, checked boxes, moved on. To Terry, Juan was a resource, not a man. He didn't let it break him, but it wore on him slowly, quietly, the way cold weather wears on an old coat.
Some days he'd push that cart down the hallway and a thought would flash through him. Does anyone in this building know I exist? He always pushed the thought away. He had Jared. Jared's laughter at dinner was real. The crayon drawings left on the kitchen table were real. The way his son ran to the door when Juan came home, that was the most real thing in his life. So he kept his head down. He kept showing up. He kept pouring himself into a job that barely paid the bills and gave nothing back. He told himself it was enough. Most days he almost believed it.
It started on a Tuesday. Callaway Group was hosting its quarterly review. The lobby had been polished that morning. Juan had done it himself, down on his knees at 5:30 a.m., buffing the tile until it shined. He'd arranged the waiting chairs. He'd made sure the glass on the front doors was spotless. By 9 in the morning, the building was buzzing. Suits filed in from every direction. Visitors checked in at the front desk, where Angelica smiled wide and handed out guest badges with both hands. Conference rooms on the 3rd floor were booked solid. The smell of fresh coffee filled every hallway. And Juan was invisible, right in the middle of all of it. He was in the main corridor, working quietly, when Terry Fallis appeared at his elbow. "Juan," her voice was low and clipped. "They need the 3rd floor conference hall restocked. Water, cups, napkins. Get up there now." "Yes, ma'am." He loaded his cart and headed for the elevator. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, the hallway was full. Executives moved back and forth between rooms. Someone laughed loudly near the coffee station. Henry and Munch were setting up a projector just down the hall, talking over each other. Juan moved carefully, quietly. He slipped into the conference hall and began restocking the side table. That's when he heard it. Henry's voice, loud enough to carry through the door. "You see Terry's got the janitor up here today?" Munch laughed. "Figured they'd keep him downstairs on a day like this. Right? Kinda kills the vibe, you know?" Juan's hands didn't stop moving. He kept his eyes on the water bottles he was lining up on the table. His jaw tightened, just slightly, but he didn't say a word. He finished. He pushed his cart back into the hallway and kept moving. He told himself it didn't matter. He'd heard worse. He knew how to let things pass through him. But it stayed. That phrase, kills the vibe. Like his presence was something to be managed, something to be hidden away when important people showed up. He was heading toward the elevator when Linda stepped out of a nearby office. She nearly bumped into his cart. She looked up at him, then at the cart. Then she wrinkled her nose. "Can you maybe not park that thing in the middle of the hall during client hours?" Her tone was sharp, casual, like she was talking to no one in particular. "Sorry," Juan said. He moved the cart to the side. Linda didn't acknowledge it. She was already looking at her phone. Juan stood there 1 second longer than he needed to, just 1 second. Then he pressed the elevator button and looked straight ahead. He had practiced this, the art of holding it together in public. He had been practicing for years. You learn to keep your face still. You learn to breathe through it. He went back downstairs. He kept working. By midday, the quarterly review was in full swing. Important people filled important rooms. Decisions were being made. Handshakes exchanged. Futures discussed. And Juan was in the basement break room, eating his lunch alone. A peanut butter sandwich he'd packed that morning, a small bag of chips. He sat at the corner table, the one near the vending machines that no one else ever chose because it was too loud and too close to the noise. He pulled out his phone and looked at a photo of Jared. School picture day. Jared grinning wide, one front tooth missing, wearing the blue shirt Juan had ironed the night before with careful, patient hands. Juan stared at that photo for a long time. Then he folded up the rest of his sandwich, slid it back into the bag, and stood up. He had more floors to clean. He had a son to go home to.
That had to be enough. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that someone had been watching him all morning.
And she had seen everything. The weeks that followed that Tuesday were harder than usual. Something about that day had settled differently inside Juan's chest. He couldn't shake the weight of it. Not the specific words, not one single moment. It was the accumulation of it all. 3 years of showing up, 3 years of early mornings and quiet hallways and conversations that stopped the moment he entered a room. 3 years of being useful without being valued. He was tired in a way that sleep couldn't reach, and Jared was picking up on it. One evening after dinner, Jared sat across the kitchen table doing his homework. He looked up at Juan with those clear, honest eyes that never hid anything. "Dad," he said, "are you sad?" Juan looked at his son. He forced a smile. "I'm okay, buddy." Jared kept looking at him. "You look tired." "I'm always tired." "Different kind of tired," Jared said quietly. Then he went back to his drawing. 8 years old and already too perceptive. Juan sat with that long after Jared went to bed. His son saw him, really saw him, in a way that the entire building where he worked never had. And somehow that truth made the loneliness feel even sharper, even more specific. Work grew harder the following week. There was an incident on the 8th floor, a large spill, an overturned cart of office supplies near the copy room. No one was certain how it happened. Henry suggested one of the cleaning staff had bumped it. Terry called Juan into her office that afternoon.
"This is the 3rd complaint I've received about the 8th floor this month," she said without looking up. "I've been keeping that floor clean," Juan said steadily. "I don't know about the spills specifically, but I need my team reliable," Terry cut in. Her voice was flat and final. "We have clients in this building every single day. Appearances matter." Her team. Juan wasn't sure if he was counted in that. "I hear you," he said. "Good." She finally looked up, not with warmth, with assessment. "Don't let it happen again." He walked out of that office with his face calm and his hands steady. But inside, something shifted. Not loud, explosive anger, just a deep and quiet fury, the kind that builds slowly when you've been giving everything you have to a place that refuses to give anything back. The kind that grows when you keep choosing grace and nobody ever once acknowledges the choice. He thought about quitting that night. He lay in bed after midnight, staring at the ceiling, running the numbers he had already run 100 times. Rent, utilities, Jared's school supplies, the dentist appointment coming up that he'd already rescheduled once, car insurance that was overdue by 3 weeks. There was no way out. Not right now. Not without putting Jared in a worse position than they were already in. He was not trapped by walls or bars. He was trapped by love, by responsibility, by being the only person standing between his son and real uncertainty. So he would stay. He would keep showing up. He would move through those hallways like a ghost and do his work and absorb every small humiliation with quiet dignity. Because Jared needed him to. Because the notes in the lunch bag needed to keep coming. Because the broken blinds in that bedroom needed to be fixed eventually, and the person who was going to fix them was him. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts on Juan's story below. Have you ever kept going in a place that refused to see you? I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. The next morning brought something new waiting for him. A rumor. Angelica at the front desk had apparently told someone, it wasn't clear who, that she'd seen Juan crying in the stairwell a few days prior. He hadn't, but the story was moving through the office the way those stories do.
Low voices, knowing glances, a whisper that becomes fact because nobody checks. By noon, he could feel it in the air, that particular discomfort that follows a person who has been marked. Linda avoided his eyes entirely. Munch said something to Henry near the supply closet, and they both glanced in Juan's direction before walking away. It was small, it was petty, it shouldn't have mattered, but it landed like a stone dropping into still water, and the ripples kept moving. He went to the men's restroom on the second floor during his afternoon break. He stood over the sink, ran cold water over his hands, looked at his own reflection. He barely recognized himself. The face looking back was worn down. The eyes were tired, the different kind of tired, not from the work, from the invisibility, from being present in a place that treated his presence like an inconvenience. He dried his hands. He straightened his uniform, and he walked back out. He didn't know that at that exact moment, in the lobby below him, a woman had just stepped off the elevator. She was carrying a leather portfolio. She ended a phone call the moment she looked up and saw him come down the stairs. She went still, and she watched him, not with pity, not with judgment, with something that looked a whole lot like recognition. Her name was Delois Fuller. She was in the building for a second visit, a meeting with Callaway's executive team about a potential partnership. She had no reason to be near that stairwell, no business on the second floor that afternoon, but she was there, and she stopped. Delois Fuller had built her company from nothing. She had started with very little, worked jobs that paid just enough to survive, and moved through rooms of people who had decided she didn't matter before she had ever opened her mouth. She knew what it looked like when someone was carrying a weight that the world refused to acknowledge. She had carried it herself. She recognized the posture immediately, the straightened uniform, the carefully neutral face, the look of a person who had chosen dignity over despair so many times that it had become almost automatic. She walked toward him. "Excuse me," she said. Juan slowed. He looked up. He didn't know who she was, just another visitor. He stepped to the side, the way he always did, habit, really, to make room for her to pass. "No, no," she said gently. "I'm not trying to get past you." He looked at her more carefully. She was well dressed, confident without being loud about it, and her voice was soft in a way that wasn't performed. It was the softness of someone who had nothing left to prove. "You've been working here a while?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," he said carefully. "About 4 years." She nodded slowly. "You're good at your job." Juan didn't know what to do with that. Nobody had said that to him here, not once in 4 years. "I've been watching you," she continued, "today and a few weeks ago during the quarterly review, the way you work, the way you carry yourself in this place." She paused. "What's your name?" "Juan," he said. "Juan Cotton." She extended her hand. "Delois Fuller." He shook it. "Juan," she said, "I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." She looked at him steadily. "Do you like this work?" He was quiet for a real moment, not the managed silence of someone performing composure, a genuine pause, like he was actually allowing himself to answer the question truthfully for the first time. "I like doing good work," he finally said. "I don't always like how it makes me feel." Delois held his gaze. "That's the most honest thing anyone in this building has said to me today." She reached into her leather portfolio and pulled out a business card. She held it out. "I run a facilities management company. We work with 18 buildings across 3 states. I've been looking for a site operations manager for our downtown division for a while now." She paused again. "I'd like to have a real conversation with you, if you're open to it." Juan looked at the card. He looked at her. He didn't speak right away, because something in him, that guarded, careful part that had stopped expecting much from anyone, was afraid this was real, was afraid to want it. "I'm serious," she said quietly, almost like she could feel the hesitation in him. "You deserve to be seen, Juan." He took the card. His hand was steady, but his eyes, for just one unguarded moment, filled.
Juan called the number on that card the following evening. He sat at the kitchen table after Jared went to bed. The card was flat on the table in front of him. His phone was in his hand. He almost didn't call. 3 times he picked up the phone. 3 times he set it back down. That voice, the one built from years of disappointment, told him not to expect anything. But he called. Delois picked up on the second ring. They talked for almost an hour. She asked about his experience, his daily routines, how he managed logistics, supply ordering, staffing schedules. She asked how he handled pressure and how he made decisions when things went sideways. Juan answered every question like it was a test he had to pass. It wasn't. She wasn't testing him. She was getting to know him. 3 weeks later, Juan sat across from Delois in a clean, quiet office on the 14th floor of her building. She made the offer formally: site operations manager, a real salary, benefits, paid time off, a schedule that meant he could drop Jared off at school every morning and be home for dinner most evenings. He accepted. His last day at Callaway Group was a Friday. Terry Fallish shook his hand and said she was sorry to lose him. She said it the way people say things they don't entirely mean, but Juan accepted it gracefully. He had nothing to prove anymore. Linda was at her desk when he passed by. She looked up. For the first time in almost 4 years, she actually looked directly at him. "Heard you got a new position," she said. "I did," Juan said simply. She nodded, went back to her screen. That was enough. He cleaned out his locker, turned in his badge, and walked out of that building into the afternoon sun. He called Jared from the parking lot. "Hey, buddy." "Jad, why are you calling early?" "I thought we'd celebrate tonight," Juan said. "Pick wherever you want for dinner." A pause. Then Jared's voice, bright and completely certain. "Pizza." Juan laughed. A full, real laugh, the kind he hadn't had in a long time, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. In the months that followed, Juan grew into his new role with the same steadiness and care he had always shown, just finally in a place that could see it. Delois was a real mentor, direct and demanding. She pushed him hard, but she also made him feel like his instincts mattered, like his experience had value, like his presence in the room was a contribution, not an inconvenience. He enrolled Jared in a better school. He finally fixed the broken blinds in Jared's bedroom. He started cooking real dinners on weeknights, not just whatever happened to be left in the refrigerator. Small things, but they were significant things. One evening, Jared sat at the kitchen table doing homework. He looked up at his father with those same clear, honest eyes. "Dad," he said, "you look different." Juan smiled. "Different how?" Jared shrugged the way only 8-year-olds can, like a shrug could be a complete sentence. "Happy," he said. And Juan didn't say anything. He just stood there and let that word settle into him. Happy. He had kept going long enough to find out what that felt like again. Juan Cotton didn't do anything extraordinary. He didn't shout. He didn't break down. He didn't demand to be seen or force anyone to acknowledge his worth. He just kept showing up. Every single day he showed up. He did the work. He tucked a note into his son's lunch bag. He straightened his uniform. He chose dignity in hallways where that dignity cost him something, and nobody ever noticed the cost. The world ignored him anyway, until one person stopped. One person looked up from what she was doing and decided that what she saw in that hallway was worth something, was worth a conversation, was worth a card and an honest question and a genuine offer. That's the part that stays with you, isn't it? Not the injustice. We've seen injustice before. We've lived inside it. We've pushed through it with tired hands and quiet hearts. It's the simplicity of what changed everything. One person stopping. One person choosing to look. One person saying your name like it mattered. Dolores Fuller didn't change Juan's life with a grand gesture. She didn't write a viral post or deliver a speech. She just walked over to a man in a hallway and told him the truth, that she saw him, that he deserved to be seen, and that was enough to begin. Before we go, I want to ask you something, and I mean this sincerely. If you've ever felt invisible somewhere you were giving everything you had, please drop something in the comments. Tell me where you are in your story right now. Tell me what part of Juan's experience hit closest to home. I read every single comment, and you might never know how much your words can mean to someone else watching this who feels exactly what you felt. Think about the people around you, the ones who show up quietly every day, the ones who do the hard work without applause, the ones carrying invisible weights while the rest of the world moves right past them without slowing down. Maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you are the single parent who packs the lunch and writes the note and drives the same route every morning and smiles through the exhaustion because your child needs you to be steady. You are not invisible here, not on this channel. And if you're new, welcome. This is the Redeemed Single Dad. We tell stories about people who kept going when everything around them said stop, people who found grace in hard places, people who refused to let the weight of being unseen define the measure of their lives. Subscribe if you believe those stories deserve to be told, because they do, every single one of them. Thank you, truly, for spending this time with Juan's story and with this channel. It means more than you know. See you in the next one.